Welcome to Raising a Healthy, Happy Eater. This presentation is for parents and caregivers of young children who are interested in learning how to raise their children to become healthy, happy eaters. As employees of the Saskatchewan Health Authority, we support the vision and mission of Healthy People, Healthy Saskatchewan, and working together to improve the health and well-being every day for everyone. We work in the spirit of truth and reconciliation and want to acknowledge we are gathering on Treaties 2, 4, 5, 6, 8, and 10 territories and the homeland of the Dakota, Lakota, and Métis. We recognize that this history is important to our future and our efforts to close the gap in health outcomes between Indigenous and non-Indigenous peoples by knowing what the land and the traditional people of the land offer us. Thank you for watching today. This presentation has been developed by the Saskatchewan Health Authority Public Health Nutritionists, and we would like to thank the parents and health professionals who provided feedback during its development. Most of the content is based on Ellen Satter's Feeding with Love and Good Sense 2. Ellen Satter is a registered dietitian and an internationally recognized expert on eating and feeding. The presentation also includes content and research from other experts. A full list of all references is included at the end of the presentation for anyone who may be interested. Today we will be covering a lot of information, including common mealtime challenges, what is competent eating, and how you can help your child become a competent eater. We will go into detail about the division of responsibility and the role that parents have with feeding and the role that children have with eating. We will touch on normal eating behaviors and when you should be concerned about your child's eating. We will also talk about why feeding problems occur and talk briefly about how to introduce new foods and involve your child with learning about food. Lastly, we will discuss the importance of being a role model in the feeding relationship you have with your child. For simplicity, we will mostly use the term parent throughout this presentation. However, know that these same concepts can be applied to all caregivers for a child, such as grandparents and childcare providers. All of the ideas we will go over today are general and not specific to any one medical condition or diagnosis, and therefore may not apply to all children. We will be focusing on strategies that may help with what is often referred to as picky eating, which may include kids who eat a limited range and variety of foods. They might take 1 to 2 week long breaks from eating their favorite foods. They may not try new foods or be resistant to trying them, but they will eat at least one food from each category and at least one food of most texture types. We will not be providing strategies for children who have more complex challenges with feeding, and this may look like a child who eats fewer than 20 foods total, or they completely stop eating and never go back to their favorite foods. A child that tantrums if a new food is in the same room, and they're typically missing entire food categories or refusing entire texture types. Children with challenges such as these typically require one-on-one support from a professional such as a dietitian, an occupational therapist, or other qualified health professional. We want to start with having you take a moment and think of what common mealtime challenges you are experiencing at home. Feel free to pause the video and do this now. Some of the most common concerns parents have voiced when asked include that their child won't try new foods, does not want to eat supper or eat their vegetables, drinks too much milk or not enough, and does not want to come or stay at the table. If a few or many of these are things that you are struggling with at home during your meals, know that you are not alone in your mealtime challenges. Studies show that parents worry that their children either don't eat enough, eat too much, or are picky with what they will or won't eat. And of course, parents commonly want to know, well, how do I get my child to eat? The reality is, you can't get your child to eat. You can only help your child to become competent with their eating. Feeding children isn't about getting food into them. It is about supporting and parenting them to become a competent eater. With feeding, like in all areas of parenting, it is essential to know when to take charge and when to let go. Before we go into more detail on how to feed your child, let's talk about what a competent eater is. Competent eating applies to both children and adults. A competent eater is someone that feels good about eating. They can learn to like unfamiliar foods, and they listen to their feelings of hunger and fullness to know how much to eat. And they can enjoy family meals. So you may be wondering, okay, how do I raise my child to be a competent eater? As parents, trying to get your child to eat is often instinctive because you care and you want what is best for them. As we go through these next slides, we offer concepts and strategies for you to consider. None of the information provided is meant to make you feel bad. The strategies we provide help with responding to your child's feeding cues and focus on building a long-term healthy relationship with food. These strategies may not be what you're used to, and they can feel uncomfortable at first. We want to introduce you to a feeding concept called the division of responsibility. This concept was developed and studied by Ellen Satter, and it identifies the roles or jobs that parents have with feeding their child, and the roles or jobs that a child has with eating. Following a division of responsibility when feeding can help your child to become a competent eater. If you follow the division of responsibility, your child is more likely to be less uncertain about unfamiliar foods, to enjoy being at family meals, and to rely on their own feelings of hunger and fullness to eat the right amount to grow well. When your child is a baby, you are responsible for what your infant eats. Most often, breast milk, pasteurized donor human milk, or infant formula. Your infant, however, is responsible for how much and when they eat, where you typically feed them based on when they show signs of hunger and fullness, rather than following a strict feeding schedule or aiming for a specific amount. Moving from infancy to toddlerhood and beyond, the division of responsibility changes. As your child gets older and starts eating family foods, your job becomes deciding what, when, and where meals and snacks are served. However, your child is still responsible for deciding whether they will eat and how much they eat. Children need structure and limits, and also choice within those limits, especially during the toddler years when they are learning about themselves. If you maintain the division of responsibility, your child will pick and choose from what you put on the table. Now let's learn a bit more about these three roles or jobs that parents have with feeding. As parents, it is your job to decide what to serve at meals and snacks. Offer a variety of foods to give your child plenty of opportunities to choose nutritious foods that they enjoy. All foods can be a part of healthy eating. However, some foods should be limited in how often they are offered, such as those that are processed or high in salt, sugar, or saturated fat. This will help support healthy eating, as what you offer can impact what your child will learn to like and choose in the future as well. Ensure that you have at least one food on the table at each meal and snack that your child typically eats. It may turn out to be a day where your child has decided they don't want that food that they usually enjoy, but know that you did your job by offering it. If you're introducing a new food, you want to make sure to also pair it with foods your child is already familiar with and usually eats. We'll talk more about introducing new foods later in the presentation. It is important to offer everyone the same meal. Cooking separate meals or short order cooking to make your child's favorite foods, like chicken fingers, for example, it goes against the division of responsibility and building a healthy relationship with food for your child. Although it solves a short-term conflict for that meal, it causes the power struggles and picky eating to continue in the future. It also does not allow children to be exposed to and learn to like a variety of foods. Remember, it is the parent's job to decide what is offered, not the child's. This provides your child with clear boundaries to make choices within. Being responsible for the what does not mean that you decide what foods your child eats during the meal. It means you're responsible for deciding what foods are offered at the meal or snack. You can let your child know they can pick and choose from all the foods on the table and are free to eat as much or as little as they want. There may be some days where they choose to only eat one food at a meal. This is okay. Sporadic eating is a normal behavior. You can trust that following the division of responsibility and offering regular balanced meals and snacks will help meet your child's nutrient needs over time. The second role that parents have is when to serve food. Children thrive on structure and routine. Aim to offer food at regular meals and snacks, such as 3 meals and 2 to 3 snacks a day, spaced approximately 2 to 3 hours apart. You can think of snacks as mini meals. Snacks are an important time to provide nutrient-rich foods because children have small stomachs and they can't eat the same volume that adults can at meals. But they still might have high nutrition needs because they are growing and highly active. It's also important to help children create an appetite between meals and snacks. So you want to avoid allowing your child to graze on food, milk, juice, or sugary drinks throughout the day, as this can interfere with their appetite. It's important to note, cow's milk is a nutritious choice, which helps with your child's growth. But children who fill up on milk miss out on important nutrients from other foods, including iron, which can increase their risk of anemia. For this reason, it's recommended to limit milk to 2 to 3 cups or 16 to 24 ounces per day. Children are less likely to eat well or sit for a meal or snack if they come to the table and they're already full. To help your child be hungry for mealtime and to help reduce the risk of cavities, only offer water between your planned meals and snacks. Children are also less likely to eat well if they are tired or overstimulated. Let your child know that play will end soon and that a meal or snack time will be in maybe 10 to 15 minutes. This helps them to prepare and settle down. You could also consider using an activity, such as reading a book or singing a song, to help your child relax before the meal. Having your child wash their hands or help with preparing the food or setting the table can also help with the transition from playtime to mealtime. The last role parents have is deciding where your meals take place. Sharing mealtimes whenever possible provides an opportunity for modeling the desired eating behavior you would like to see your child have and family connection. It's important to remove distractions during the meal, For example, turn off the TV, put toys, tablets, and phones away. Distractions can interrupt that family connection time, and it can also interfere with your child's ability to listen to their hunger and fullness cues. It is reasonable for your child to sit down to eat. They may wiggle or squirm some, depending on their age, and that's okay. Sometimes children can be uncomfortable in their chair, which can cause them to fidget or not want to stay at the table. Providing comfortable and supported seating, ideally with a footrest if their feet don't touch the floor, can help so that your child can focus on eating. Regular family meals are an opportunity for parents to model healthy behaviors and for children to develop healthy eating habits. There is no clear definition of a family meal or what the frequency of eating together should be in order to experience benefits. However, there is evidence that shows people have a higher intake of nutritious foods, such as vegetables and fruit, when they eat with others. Children with frequent family meals are more likely to have better nutritional health, stronger family relationships, better mental health, and are less likely to engage in risky behaviors in adolescence, such as substance use. So now that you know your role with feeding, what about your child's? Your child's role or jobs with eating are whether or if they eat and how much they eat of what is offered to them. This includes deciding if they will eat one, two, or many foods from what is offered, or maybe no foods at all. And we'll talk more about this on the next slide. They also decide how much to eat from the foods on the table. If that means 3 scoops of carrots and 3 strings of spaghetti, that's okay. You can help serve the food they want in small portions on their plate. This will help reduce waste and avoid overwhelming them with large amounts of food at once. They can always ask for more of a food, assuming, of course, there is more. For example, if you only have one avocado and everyone gets a slice, it's fine to say, we each only get one slice because that is all there is. Otherwise, if a child has finished an item on their plate and requests more, you do not want to restrict them, regardless of whether all other items on their plate are finished. And we will explain the importance of this a little bit later in the presentation. Let's take a minute to talk about what to do if your child decides not to eat at a meal, because we understand how stressful this can be. If a child does not want to eat at a meal, parents may take it upon themselves to try and convince their child to eat. But remember, it's the child's job to decide how much or whether they eat at all. Unless there are more complex feeding issues, most children will not refuse to eat a whole meal once the division of responsibility is part of the household routine and kids know and trust that eating is in their control. As you are working to establish the division of responsibility, if your child says they don't want to eat at a meal, you can respond with, "That's okay, but I need you to sit at the table for a certain period of time." And then you want to base that time on their age and what would be a reasonable time for them to sit with others without that pressure to eat. So maybe 5 to 15 minutes might be a good range depending on their age. If after that period of time they still don't want to eat, you can say, "That's okay. You can go and do something that doesn't distract others at the table, but there will be no food until snack time, which is in 2 hours." For young children, it's hard to understand time, so you can try and explain to them when that snack time will occur. Maybe use a reference such as, "There will be no food until snack time, which is after your nap." Now it's important to confidently but gently enforce that. And remember, when it comes to snack time, You are in charge of what is offered. It is not meant to be a punishment, such as serving them their leftover lunch because they didn't eat it. But it is also not up to your child to just go and pick whatever they want from the pantry. Continue to offer a variety of nourishing options with at least one familiar food at snack time. Once children feel confident that they are in charge of whether or if and how much they eat from what you offer, they are likely to learn to enjoy eating at these times and rarely refuse to eat entirely at a meal. Maintaining the division of responsibility will eventually lead to your child choosing from what foods you have offered. After the division of responsibility is well established, if there are meals your child still won't eat at, it may be that they are not hungry or don't feel well and are not able to identify or express that. If your child is not eating for an extended period of time, or you are concerned about your child's health, speak with your healthcare provider. Now we're going to show you a few different videos of family meals, some which are going well and others that are not. In this first clip, you will meet Madison and Daniel. The parents are doing a great job in including their twins in the family meal. As you watch this family, consider, do the parents support the twins in doing their eating jobs?
Alan picked up a pizza on the way home from work. Pizza is soft and easy to chew. He and Pam have cut it into small enough pieces so the children can feed themselves. Maddie gags a little. She can breathe, so she isn't choking. She accepts a little back patting from her mother, but she can work that bit of food off the back of her tongue by herself. Daniel has good hand and mouth control and so enjoys feeding himself that he eats almost anything. Even though he's chubby, Daniel must be allowed to eat as much as he is hungry for.
Madison and Daniel are almost toddlers. They enjoyed feeding themselves, ate almost anything, and seemed to both eat until they had enough. The parents did a good job of allowing both children to do their job with eating. This family meal was enjoyed by everyone at the table. In this second video, you will meet AJ, a toddler who feels good about his eating and is a competent eater, even though he plays around and doesn't seem to eat that much. As you watch AJ and his family, think about, do his parents allow him to do his job? And are they supporting him to be a competent eater?
Two-year-old AJ and his sister Tiara are having a meal of tacos, chips, and guacamole. 4.5-year-old Tiara has the coordination to manage this tricky food. It remains to be seen how AJ does with it. Annie and Nick have used their ingenuity to provide the children with comfortable seating at the same time as they participate in the family meal. Because AJ's hungry and enjoys eating, he stays in his chair and pays attention to his meal. AJ has trouble managing this taco, but typical toddler, he doesn't want help. Once he gets started, he successfully hangs on to it and has a bite. The problem is he puts it down. He doesn't understand the laws of gravity, and when he picks it up again, all the filling falls out. This time, it's okay to have a little help. Another successful bite. AJ keeps an eye on his parents while he eats. Clearly, their being there is important to him. By now, the taco's a lost cause, but even though it's broken, it still works for directing the music that only AJ can hear.
Did it break? Yeah. Oh
All right, let's try some meat. That's what spoons are for. Well, I guess they're for picking up the meat to put it into your fingers. AJ is making a mess, but he's not doing it on purpose. He's doing his level best to eat his meal. Tiara, for her part, is not bothered by his antics. More conversation with Mom and Dad. He so enjoys having them there. More little songs that only AJ can hear. He's horsing around, but he's still eating. He just has trouble sitting still, and he isn't bothering anyone. If he starts to be a bother, it generally means he's full, and he can leave. He doesn't have to stay there until everyone else finishes. AJ's full, and his attention wanders. He notes the mess on the floor and tells his mother that she made it. He gets down and begins working on the mess. His mother warns him not to brush the food onto the carpet. He ignores that. Come on, AJ, time to wash your hands. Annie picks him up and hauls him off. She's not alarmed by AJ's protests.
AJ enjoys eating and being at the meal with his family. He doesn't seem to eat very much, but that is okay. At another meal, he might eat more, or he might eat less. AJ knows how much he needs to eat, and he's experimenting with the meal his parents have prepared. AJ's parents took the opportunity to help him in learning how to eat and hold his taco. And even though he plays around during the meal, he appeared to enjoy the meal experience. To do well with eating, children need to find it enjoyable. Sorting out your jobs from your toddler's jobs is tricky, but being confident in your roles can help avoid unnecessary struggles with feeding. It is helpful to know that children's eating competence may look different compared to adult eating competence. Children's eating changes often, and they may not do the same thing twice. Variation in appetite and food preferences are very normal. Research indicates that the majority of children who are described by their parents as picky eaters actually have an appetite that is appropriate for their development. They also noted that it is common for children between the ages of 2 to 6 to have a decrease in appetite to match a slower rate of growth. It is important to accept normal eating behaviors, and in order to accept them, we need to know what they are. So children may eat a lot one day and a little the next day. They may not eat a whole meal and instead only eat 2 or 3 foods. They can tire of their favorite foods and not want to experiment with new foods. In fact, rarely will they eat a new food the very first time they see it. They use utensils and fingers. Children may eat with their fingers up until 10 years of age. And they can be very specific with food-related wants. For example, they might cry if a cracker is broken, they don't like when their foods touch or get mixed, and they can have color preferences too. These behaviors are not unusual and can be seen as part of normal development. It may take multiple separate exposures to a new food, up to 12 or more, before a child will accept it. New food takes time, and it is important that the exposure is offered in a neutral manner without pressure. And we will talk about this later in the presentation. Now we'll watch a video of Sean. You will see both some positives and negatives during this meal. Mom Jenny is doing a good job of getting a meal on the table and eating together as a family. However, she is concerned over Sean being a picky eater. As you watch this video, think about, is the division of responsibility being followed? And is anyone enjoying this meal?
This is what you get. Ooh.
Jenny thinks 3.5-year-old Sean is too picky and she works way too hard to feed him. Right from the start, she pressures him to eat the dreaded green beans. She also makes noodles especially for him.
These are noodles. Do you see? These are noodles. I'm giving you noodles and green beans.
Sean likes watermelon, but Jenny can't relax and let him enjoy it. She worries about the noodles.
Hey, look at that. You asked me for buttered noodles, but you're not even eating them, dude.
While she was cooking, Jenny asked Sean if he wanted noodles. Children don't know what they'll eat until the food is in front of them, and generally not even then.
Okay, 2 more bites of watermelon, and then 1 green bean.
And then 4 more bites of watermelon.
Okay, good. So 2.
Bargaining with Sean about eating is unpleasant for both of them and doesn't work. Who knows how many bites of green beans it takes to earn a few bites of watermelon.
Put it on your mouth really fast, and then drink some milk.
Sean tries to please Jenny, but those green beans are just too much. Jenny doesn't have to get Sean to eat, nor does she have to short order cook for him. Instead, she can let him choose what and how much to eat from what is on the table. At first, he'll avoid green beans and other foods he's been pressured to eat, but he'll start eating them again once he trusts that his eating is his business.
Are you really full already?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
I'm not sure if you are.
Sean might not be full, just eager to get away. Jenny wants the best for Sean, but struggling with him about his eating makes him eat worse, not better. Her interference contributes to his picky eating, and it can even make him eat less than he needs.
As you saw in the video, there was a constant struggle between Jenny and Sean during this meal, and neither of them appeared to enjoy it. Jenny pressured Sean to eat the green beans and noodles, and did not let him eat as much or as little as he wanted. We heard her try to bargain with Sean, using the watermelon to get him to eat his green beans. Jenny did not appear able to relax and enjoy eating alongside Sean. She was not able to trust that he was full or allow him to choose how much he ate of the foods that were offered. She was trying to do Sean's job with eating. Of course, Jenny cares about Sean and his eating, but she worked too hard, and in the process, she put pressure on Sean to eat. As a result, Sean was not able to enjoy eating his watermelon, he didn't eat well, and the meal was a struggle. Removing pressure and following the division of responsibility will eventually lead to meals that can be enjoyed by everyone at the table. Given what we saw in the video, if the pressure to eat continues, what do you think will happen with Sean's eating and behavior? If you answered that Sean's eating and behavior will likely get worse, you are right. Pressuring a child to eat, including new foods, does not increase the chances of them accepting or trying that food. And it may result in behavior tantrums or mealtime struggles like we just saw in the video. That video showed us exactly why pressuring children to eat might make them eat worse and not better. Pressure can look like trying to get a child to eat one food over another, to eat more or less of certain foods, or to avoid specific foods entirely. Some pressure tactics that you might be familiar with include forcing, bribing, bargaining, and tricking. Examples of this are nagging your child about eating their meat. So if you don't eat your meat, you won't go strong. You want to be strong, right? Or if you don't eat your vegetables, you can't have dessert. Have 2 more bites of your potatoes and then you can go play. If you listen today, we can go for ice cream. Open up, here comes the airplane. Other tactics that you might think are positive and helpful, like teaching, applauding, praising, or rewarding, can also be forms of pressure. Some examples include, you have to eat your carrots because they help you to see. Or clapping your hands and saying, "Yay, good job, I'm so happy that you ate your peas." Praise, although well-intentioned, is a form of pressure. It's important not to praise your child for eating new foods or foods you feel are good, like vegetables. We know all of these tactics are done with the absolute best of intentions, and you do them because you want the best for your child. But pressure doesn't work. Often it has the opposite effect, and it can interfere with your child learning how to recognize when they are hungry or when they are full. As toddlers work to be more independent, they generally prefer to feed themselves, and they're often more selective about what they will eat. Parents may pressure because they think that they have to get their child to eat. This strategy may cause problems. For example, research indicates that pressuring children to consume more fruits and vegetables is actually associated with a lower intake of fruits and vegetables. And rewarding children for consuming healthy foods actually results in a decreased preference for those foods. Pressure may also lead to a child overeating and may interfere with a child's ability to regulate their own intake. In this next video, the parents, Chris and Glenn, have an agenda. They are worried about their daughter's weight and want to keep it down. As you watch this video, pay attention to what their agenda does to the family meal and to Gracie. Ask yourself, is Gracie allowed to eat based on how hungry or full she may be?
Chris and Glenn would do anything for almost 5-year-old Gracie, but they've gotten the message about child overweight. They try to manage Gracie's weight by controlling portions, restricting fat and carbohydrates, and encouraging vegetables, fruit, and low-fat food.
Okay.
Can I eat the rice?
Gracie asks whether she can eat the rice. The rule used to be that Gracie couldn't have rice, but she put up such a fuss that they let her have it if she eats her other food first. Weeks later, she still worries about her rice.
Okay. I have to put it on my plate too.
For Gracie, eating this broiled chicken is a chore. She gets herself to do the chore by making it a game.
Feeding you. And my chicken will what?
Good job. Now you can eat your vegetables. Don't drink so much of the milk, okay? You're gonna fill yourself up.
Mommy,
Huh?
you forgot to me to give me bread.
You can have bread after you eat your vegetables, okay?
And my rice too.
Trying to do Gracie's part of the division of responsibility gives Chris lots of
I
rules.
don't like it on the bottom.
These rules teach Gracie to eat based on what her parents tell her. In the process, she loses touch with her own feelings of hunger and fullness. This time, Gracie goes along with the rules. Other times, she puts up such a fuss that it spoils mealtime. Gracie wants to please her parents, but leaving the table hungry and unsatisfied is more than she can manage.
Now we can eat the rice.
Finally, Gracie gets to eat her rice and bread. She might not even be hungry at this point, but she eats it anyway. Eating by the rules makes Gracie overeat sometimes and not get enough to eat other times. Being afraid of going hungry will make Gracie food preoccupied and prone to overeat. It would be better to let Gracie serve herself and eat as much as she wants of all the food on the menu. After eating more than usual for a few weeks, she'll eat as much as she needs.
I beat you.
You did beat me.
Gracie's little body is just the way it needs to be, but all of these rules about her eating are likely to make her fatter than is right for her.
Chris and Glenn do such a good job of getting a meal on the table and sitting down together as a family. As you saw, Gracie was focused on eating in order to be allowed her favorite foods of rice and bread. Being preoccupied with what she was eating may interfere with her ability to listen to her hunger and fullness cues. Not allowing Gracie to have her favorite foods until the end of the meal may have resulted in Gracie consuming more than she would have if all of the foods were offered at the start of the meal. Gracie may have already been full, but because she had waited so eagerly for the rice and bread, she ate them anyways. Chris and Glenn's attempts to control what and how much Gracie eats interferes with her ability to regulate her own intake of food now and in the future. Trying to get a child to eat certain foods, like their meat and vegetables, over others, like rice and bread, or depriving them of certain foods, such as not allowing dessert if they didn't finish their meal, or withholding a meal or snack due to misbehavior, or not allowing a child to have second helpings or eat until they feel full, are all forms of restriction. Parents who are concerned about their child's weight, like Chris and Glenn, may try to get their child to fill up on foods that they consider to be healthier. But this can leave the child feeling hungry or lead them to overeat. And although most parents are so well-intentioned when they use food restriction, this strategy does not work, and it often has the opposite effect. When food is restricted, children can become afraid of going hungry and then overeat when they get the chance. Children who are deprived of certain foods or a certain amount of food can become preoccupied with food and desire those foods more, like we saw in the video with Gracie. Highly restricted children have difficulty regulating their own food intake, and they are likely to eat more and experience greater weight gain across their childhood. And lastly, children who get the message they weigh more than they should tend to have poor self-esteem, higher risk for depression and anxiety, and more negative self-talk. You cannot tell by looking at a child if they are too large or too small. Healthy bodies come in all different shapes and sizes. Trust your child to know when they are hungry or full. Allowing your child to enjoy eating and being active at a young age sets them on the path to healthy living. So focus your energy on creating opportunities for healthy eating and physical activity for the entire family. Outside of feeding pressure and restriction, there are other things that can interfere with a child being a competent eater. Examples can include past experiences with choking. If a child has choked on a food, they may then associate fear with that food and that experience, which can cause feeding problems. Medical health issues such as pain, reflux, chronic constipation, breathing difficulties, ADHD, or autism. Increased hyperactivity, so a difficulty paying attention and staying focused. Some medications for these can also suppress appetite. If a child has oral motor difficulties, for example, they have an immature chewing or tongue coordination or poor oral strength, those can all lead to feeding problems. And if a child has sensory aversions, so that's where the sensory system may be under or over responsive to senses, including taste, sight, feel, smell, or even the sound of food. Some children with autism may have strong sensory preferences. These types of issues are beyond what is typically referred to as picky eating, and they may require more individualized support. So if you are concerned about your child's eating, speak with your medical provider to rule out any medical reasons and/or sensory concerns for the eating behavior. As we explained when talking about the division of responsibility, caregivers are responsible for deciding what foods will be served. As part of this, we often get questions around introducing new foods to children. So we're going to take a few minutes to talk about this. Eating is a learned experience that takes time. For most children, if you remember we mentioned earlier, it can take multiple tries, up to 12 or more exposures before they may accept a new food. If your child doesn't like a food the first time that you offer it, keep offering it in the future. Try offering it in a variety of ways, including different shapes and textures, but without the expectation or pressure for them to eat it. Eating is also a multisensory experience, and this can be overwhelming for some children. Children may use a variety of their senses to explore new foods, and this slide lists some of the typical things they may do when they're learning to like, become familiar with, or accept a new food. Some children might start with only tolerating looking at a food and observing what are others doing with it. Whereas other children may jump right in and they might touch or taste a new food. Regardless, it is good to remember that children learn at different rates, and this is okay. It is important to offer new foods with at least one other food your child typically likes. In order to give them the opportunity to choose different foods, avoid offering your child's same favorite food too often. You can also help your child learn a bit about a new food beforehand. As foods become more familiar and your child interacts with and sees others interacting with and eating it, they may be more likely to try it. Now I'm going to read you the Grasshopper Story, written by Marcia Duncline, about an experience that she had eating with her family in Mexico. Marcia is an occupational therapist who works with kids in feeding. And I want you to see if you notice which, if any, senses she uses as she eats. The Grasshopper Story by Marcia Duncline. I would like to share a family story that helped me understand how worried eaters might feel when they're trying a new food. When my sons were 10 and 13, we traveled to Osaka, Mexico to study Spanish for a month in an immersion program. We lived and ate with a local family. We were served absolutely delicious food for the entire month, and on our last day, our hostess went to the mercado and brought home a surprise. "What is it?" we asked in our newly emerging Spanish. Her response was chapulines. We had to look up the word in our Spanish dictionary as she could not translate it into English. It was grasshoppers. Yes, really, grasshoppers. We wanted to be polite. We wanted to appreciate our surprise. But grasshoppers? Really? So since my children looked at me as if to say, "Mom, you are going first," I started checking them out. First off, they were dead. That seemed like a good start, as I had read that in some parts of the world people eat live bugs. Next, they obviously smelled like garlic, and I like garlic. However, the very large bowl of grasshoppers was all parts: head parts, body parts, leg parts, antenna parts, parts. Now I began to seriously get worried. I asked our hostess, "How do we eat them?" She demonstrated how she piled some guacamole on a flour tortilla and then put on a handful of them. Yes, a handful of parts, folded the tortilla, and ate the delicacy. All eyes were on me. It was my turn to eat grasshoppers. I took a tortilla, which I like, and I put on lots of guacamole. Then I bravely felt one little part with my fingertips. Put it on the pile of guacamole, folded it, and ate it. My mouth felt a tiny little crunch, but I expected a crunch because it had crunched between my fingers. Everyone giggled, but I was proud I did not embarrass myself by gagging. But the trying was not over. This was not a little snack for the Gringo family. It was lunch. So by my fourth one, I still had a lot of guacamole, but I had a whole cluster of parts. They did not taste particularly bad or good, as my generous mounds of guacamole dominated the flavor, but they were noticeably crunchy in the center of the mouthful. We all lived through this experience with lots of laughter and photos. I realized later that I had just experienced being a worried eater, and I naturally did the things we do to help our worried eater friends. First, I looked at the new food and asked about it. I smelled it and could relate to a smell that I already liked, the garlic. I watched someone else eating it. I felt it with my fingers while preparing it. I got to try it at my own pace with lots of guacamole and tortilla, initially to camouflage the worrisome taste and texture. I added a little more of the worrisome food at my pace and I fed it to myself. It was clear to me that if someone had put a pile of grasshoppers on a spoon and tried to feed me, I would have gagged or vomited, and it would have been an overall very bad experience. Because I was able to go at my own pace, I ended up having a good time, even though grasshoppers may never end up on my favorite food list. We need to respect the worry when children are anxious about trying new foods. We need to help them learn something about the new food ahead of time through watching us and through all of their senses, and absolutely let them go at their pace. We now remind parents of worried eaters that they might consider every new food they offer their child to be a grasshopper, and new food offering may well be easier. Consider everything as a grasshopper to a worried eater. So this story gives a great viewpoint of experiencing new foods as an adult. We heard even adults use the same methods and senses when they're experiencing and learning about a new food that they're not familiar with. This story really brings to light that for kids, experiencing new foods is unfamiliar, and to them, all new foods may be just like eating a grasshopper. Involving children in planning and preparing meals also helps them interact with and learn about food and develop food skills. Involving your child in the kitchen, garden, or with planning or preparation of meals has many benefits, such as it can help build an interest in food, new flavors, and cooking, making your child more likely to cook for themselves and their families in the future. It is a great way to spend quality time together, teach family recipes, and share cooking traditions. It provides your child an opportunity to develop self-confidence, creativity, and fine motor skills. And lastly, it allows your child to learn about math, science, language, food skills, and more. Overall, it can help build the foundation for a healthy relationship with food and may lead to improved diet quality as your child gets older. Some ways to help your child learn about food include have your child help you come up with a fun family meal for the week, such as a taco night. When you're grocery shopping with them, offer your child a choice between two items that you could purchase. For example, should we buy apples or oranges today? Involve your child with planting and caring for a garden space, whether that's large or small. Allow children to place some of the food items in or on a serving dish. For example, they can place raw vegetables or fruit on a tray or add them into a salad. This can also be an opportunity to teach them to wash their hands before and after touching food. You can also have your child stir something while it's being prepared, if it's safe and age appropriate to do. For example, get them to help you mix the dry ingredients in a bowl when you're baking together. Children also learn about food from observing those around them. Parents and caregivers are powerful role models for their children in many areas of life, including competent eating. Children watch and listen to how the adults around them behave, including how they react to the foods prepared for a meal, how they react to sitting for meal times, how they speak to and about others at the table, and how they talk about their own body. Some tips around being a positive influence on your child's eating experience include: model the behavior you would like to see in your child. For example, a willingness to try new foods yourself. Have expectations for each child based on what they can do and understand. And remember, it is normal for eating behaviors to change often for young children. Maintain a neutral attitude towards food and body weight. Avoid expressing your own positive or negative thoughts about food, talking about dieting, body weight, or how foods affect weight, and allow your child to develop their own opinion. Avoid putting an emphasis on some foods over other foods, or labeling them as good or bad, or healthy or unhealthy, or treat foods. This is especially important for young children who cannot understand complex concepts such as what nutrients are in foods. Labeling a food in a negative way may make a child feel shamed for eating it. You want to use neutral language and avoid labeling foods at all. Instead, call foods by their name, their shape, and their color. By keeping all foods neutral and on the same level, you can help prevent any one food from becoming a novelty to your child. Parents are human and no one is perfect. Expect that you will make mistakes and plan for how to fix them if you do. Here are some phrases that you might want to learn and practice. I am sorry, I was wrong, and let me rephrase that. For example, saying to your spouse in front of your toddler, green beans are so gross. A possible fix might be, oops, I should not have said that. Lots of people like green beans. I will try them again, and maybe I will like them this time. Our thoughts influence our behaviors and vice versa. Here are some points to think about with regards to yourself as you lead your child to become competent eaters. Feel free to pause the recording to think about or write down the answers to these questions. Do I eat a variety of foods? Do I try new foods? And do I try them a number of times to see if my acceptance of the food changes? Do I trust myself to recognize when I am full or hungry? Do I have regular meals and snacks during the day? And do I pay attention to the food I am eating, or do I eat while working, reading, watching television, or on my phone? How we react, what we say, and how we say something in response to someone's behavior matters. With that in mind, we have a few mealtime examples. If your child says, "Ugh, gross, I'm not eating that," instead of responding with, "You haven't even tried it, you'll like it," or "Your brother is eating it," try saying something like, "If you don't want to eat or try it, that's okay. But next time, please say no thank you." Or, "There are other foods on the table you can try if you're not interested in that item." If your child is picky with their eating, the action of making them a separate meal or snack is not helpful, as we explained at the beginning of the presentation. Instead, try to offer 1 or 2 items at each meal or snack that your child enjoys. If your child tries or eats a new food, showing excitement, like clapping your hands or saying something such as, "Yay, good job, I'm proud of you," can be a form of pressure, which we learned earlier is not helpful. Instead, I know it's hard, but try not to draw attention to the fact that they have tried or eaten a new food, and just instead continue enjoying the family meal and conversation. If your child does try a new food but spits it out, responses such as, "Don't spit it out, you have to eat it," don't help. Instead, let them know they don't have to swallow it if they don't want to, and show them how to politely remove the food into a napkin. Mealtimes can be a time and place to keep up with what is going on with everyone in the family, to help each other out, and to tell family stories. In order to do this, you may have to lead your family members in such conversations. Mealtime conversations can help build vocabulary and storytelling skills. To help establish more enjoyable mealtime conversations, you want to avoid lecturing or pressuring your child. Remember, your child's job is to decide whether and how much they will eat. Be a good listener and focus on the person and what they are telling you. Choose topics that are fun, interesting, and suitable for your family. And keep in mind topics that are age and developmentally appropriate. For example, ages 3 to 7 might be something like, would you rather have blue feet or blue hair? Who is your favorite superhero? Or what made you smile or laugh today? It's important to remember a conversation is not a quiz. Asking too many questions can be overwhelming. For example, what did you do at school today? Who did you play with? What time did you have snack? Why didn't you make it to the potty on time? Instead, try using descriptive comments based on your child's answer to a question. For example, maybe you ask them, "What's your favorite story?" And your child answers, "Oh, Spirit Riding Free, the Apple Adventure." You could respond with, "Oh, right, that has horses in it. You like horses." And then the conversation continues. Enjoyable family conversation helps to make the mealtime more enjoyable for everyone. I know we covered a lot of information, and we hope it will be helpful. Our key take-home points are: maintaining a division of responsibility with feeding will help your child to become a competent eater. Focus on your jobs of what, when, and where, and allow your child to do their jobs of whether and how much they eat. You want to avoid pressure and restriction tactics. Remember, they backfire. Structure is key. Aim to have regular scheduled meals and snacks, spaced apart in a way that allows your child to come to the table with an appetite. Try to have meals together as a family and model the behavior you want to see. Have reasonable expectations. Remember, young children are unpredictable with their eating, and they often change how they eat from day to day. And remember, eating is a learning process and it takes time and patience. Just know getting your child started right with eating is a gift that lasts a lifetime. Some credible websites that can further support you. The Ellen Satter Institute website has lots of resources, handouts, and information to help you with feeding, eating, positive family relationships, and the division of responsibility. Canada's Food Guide website is an interactive site with information and tips for healthy eating, label reading, meal planning, cooking, and more. It also includes the Food Guide Kitchen, which houses a large recipe collection. Unlockfood.ca is an award-winning website by Dietitians of Canada and contains information and resources on nutrition, food, healthy eating, recipes, menu planning, and shopping. It also includes videos and online tools. All of these websites can easily be found through a quick Google search. We have also included 2 support resources on commonly asked questions by parents and key messages. You can find both of these documents on the SHA website where the link to this video was located. We understand nutrition information is everywhere, and it is hard to know what information you can trust. Registered dietitians provide reliable, safe, and up-to-date nutrition information. If you would like to connect with a registered dietitian in your area, You can visit the Saskatchewan College of Dietitians website and search, "How can I access an RD?" or ask your healthcare provider for a referral. Thank you for watching, and please feel free to share the video link with your friends, family, or anyone who may care for your children. If you have further questions or concerns about your child's feeding or eating, please discuss them with your healthcare provider.